Yeah, no, I think this is all very interesting. I think we all run up probably against the same problems in different ways and based on our age and who we associate with and things like that. But I still think climate change now, it used to be just you would never talk about something like that. My parents' generation, trees were there to be cut. There was an infinite supply of resources as far as they were concerned. And then the generation before that was just like, how fast can we civilize the planet? They actually had a goal to make everything look the same, like an ant bed. Now I think people are a little more attuned, but it's taken 50 plus years, I think, just to get where if you say climate change or global warming, or you talk about the environmental people, I have friends now, the same ones that have all the grandkids and want to fill the world with their grandkids. Now take their used batteries to the recycling centers because they want to save the world, right? And if you just put a little chart in front of them and say, look, this is the consequence of having just one of your grandbabies, and this is how much good you're doing by recycling one AA battery, they just don't want to hear that.
Yeah. Hey, Amanda.
Hello. Oh, I can't hear her. Is she muted for you guys?
Yeah, she's muted.
Can you text her?
Host
there we go.
I'm sorry. I'm not muted now. Okay. I'm so sorry. I'm so late, guys.
All right.
It's good to see everybody. Hi.
You've increased our population by 20%, I think.
So one thing I wanted to bring up was about the conference. I was wondering if you could talk about that, Amanda.
Yeah, so I don't have a ton of information yet. Tim brought up like this sort of the skeleton of a plan, basically, that he'd like to have the world's first international antinatalist meetup conference type thing on Facebook. I don't know if he's brought it up on any other platforms yet. But yeah, I mean, it's just in the very early planning stages. Unfortunately, he couldn't be here today to talk more about it himself. But yeah, I mean, so far, I think that we're just trying to figure out, like, I mean, there's so much to do. I mean, it's, this is really going to take a gargantuan effort to try to put together. But I think the idea is to, first off, is to try to pick a place in the world to have it, and then start figuring out so many things. But first off, who we can get to come, what kind of speakers we can have. I think what's going to happen is that quite a number of speakers are going to have to be there via Zoom or Skype or something like that, because we have people in the antinatalist community that can't travel, that for various reasons. So yeah, I think it's a great idea. I want to do anything I can to make it happen. I'm honestly kind of thinking that India may have to be where it takes place, just because we really do have, like, that is where we have people that have accomplished the highest level of organization so far.
Yeah.
And I think that they may, if they're not ready for it now, they're approaching being able to handle that kind of thing. Obviously, traveling to India is tough for many of us. I don't know if I would be able to attend. But I think the other thing that we may need to address is, like, we got to figure out, we got to come up with some good ways of raising some dough, because I think we are reaching that level in our activism where, like, we've got lots of great ideas. We've been discussing them for years. We need to be able to pay for them and make them happen already. Because I think it's well and truly time. I think we're, so I think that's the other side of it. I know that Tejas and a couple of other people in India are working on, like, how you do grant writing, through cultural organizations, that fund these kind of things. I'm actually doing my own research on how to, like, because there are a lot of cultural institutions in America that, do fund art projects that are very odd, very unusual, let's say, that might, be able to kick in some things, if not on this project, then other things. But grant writing is tough. Like, I only have a very small amount of experience. It's a very specific kind of writing. Anyway, I'm going on and on and on. But I'm just saying we're at the very beginning stages of this, but I think it's a great idea, and I think we
it's
should
a great
absolutely
idea.
do it. Yeah.
They're aiming for 2020.
I think so. Yeah, I think that's the only thing that makes sense. We're in November, so I don't think it's going to get done in a month. But
could someone just, I guess, inform me, because I'm not as informed. I don't know much about it. I don't know who's behind it. And my first question is: this is intended to be an actual physical meetup with people able to access what comes out of that. And what would be the need for that? I mean, I think it's great. I think that's great. This is what needs to happen. But couldn't you just have a virtual meetup in some sense, or is that just like?
I think
we've done that.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just thinking why the physical part for the speakers or anything else. I don't know. I'm just asking. I'm thinking that can be a barrier for some people. Would it just be because that would sort of center and make a core of the key speakers and all that, and then everyone else can maybe attend virtually? Is that the idea?
I'd love it if it could be set up that way so that it could be attended virtually as well. I just think that we're at a point where it would be beneficial for several reasons to see each other face to face and maybe have some real conversations about how to move all of this forward. It's really tough. I mean, it sounds easier, all of us meeting online, but you see what happens even today. It's like a whole bunch of people get contacted, only 5 people are able to make it. So it's like, it's really, really tough to meet up virtually because we're all on different time zones. And it's like, I also think that especially if we did it in India, quite frankly, I think it's something that could get a ton of press because Indian antinatalism does get a ton of press. So if we can do something large enough, I don't think it's batshit insane to say that it actually could get some real attention. And anything that we can do peacefully to do that, I think would be great. And I think some great content could come out of it. I think we'd have to do some of it virtually. Like, David Benatar is probably not going to show up. I mean, I haven't contacted him. I don't know. But, he is a very cautious man about being seen in public. He is our personal Phantom of the Opera. He does like to hide, under the cellars, so to speak. So I have a feeling he probably won't, but he could probably do like an audio Q&A with us. I mean, he is down for those kinds of things generally. Again, I haven't contacted him about it, but so I think it'd be really interesting.
No, I think that answers my question. I mean, I think you're right. I think it would get more press if it were an actual physical meetup for a lot of people, and it draws crowds because that's what people want to see. So yeah, and I think that's great. I don't know who's behind it. I hadn't heard of this before. I think it's something that we need to definitely have. And also, for me, having thought about this and basically have been an antinatalist for 55 years. I'm not trying to be negative about it, but I think some people seem to almost have this savior mentality about Benatar in the sense that like he is antinatalism in the flesh. And I just don't see a need for that. I mean, I came to all my conclusions on my own without any help, in spite of all the resistance. To me, antinatalism isn't that difficult a concept. Anybody with even a lower than average intelligence can understand it. And I don't think it's critical. And there's so many people now that have well-schooled arguments and have had enough debate time and they have the presentation skills that I think that, we don't have to rely on any one person just to be the headlining the concept or the movement.
I agree with you. The only thing I would say about that is that we are so international and a lot of these people's content is not in their language. So this would also be another great opportunity to create to introduce a lot of antinatalists that people don't have as much access to as you may think. Because it's like Better Never to Have Been is in English and like a handful of other languages. Mm-hmm. And if we have one solid, AN conference interview Q&A type thing with so-and-so, because I don't think it's up to any one person either. And I don't buy the savior thing either. I'm not in any way trying to push that as a concept.
But there are key players, right? And so like when it comes to Cabrera or Benatar or even the people online doing their thing, I think it's helpful to have that kind of conference and community building. It's not just community building, but movement building too, especially when you see each other face to face. You were talking about past movements. This is exactly what they do, right? They come together and they hold these conferences and also publish speaker material. And I think it helps promote everything. And I think that's the next step that really needs to happen.
Yeah. What do you call that? Awareness raising, I guess.
Oh yeah, because like the online stuff that's been around. Like I don't know how long has been antinatalism on YouTube. Many years now.
Just about 10 years.
Mark, that's so funny though, because you say, how long has it been on YouTube? And my immediate thought is, YouTube's not very old.
No.
It's not.
That's
but
so
it's come and gone on YouTube too. I mean, we've had some really active eras and some not so active eras of it, but yeah, it's been about 10 years.
Do you think it's important that we have material and presentations that are initially in, let's say, the top 3 languages, Mandarin and Spanish and English or something? Is that some of your emphasis, or is that my understanding, or did I misunderstand what you're saying? I guess Amanda or whoever, anybody.
Well,
in other words, are you saying that we should have a native Spanish speaker at this conference and a Mandarin speaker, and so that we can reach deeper into the top 3 languages spoken on the planet?
Well, that would be great. I mean, I think we're going to be stuck with having whoever we have, and then some effort afterwards to translate that content into various languages. But I think that a lot of this topic appeals to a hugely wide variety of people that like you wouldn't even think would go together. I mean, and in so many different languages in the world, and I think that it's just like a lot of people in, let's say, I don't know, I don't want to. I'm just saying it'll be a great way to sort of introduce a wider spectrum of antinatalists to what else is going on in antinatalism, because that's not as easy to do online as I think it seems like it might be. So I just think it'd be a great way to kind of bring it all together in one space. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would love it if we could get a speaker from every language, or we could get translators, we can get people doing sign language and stuff like that. I don't think we're at that point, but yeah, I just think it'd be a great opportunity to create some great content that could then be distributed in a nice package to a wider audience.
Mind? Sorry.
No, not at all.
I think there's a slight delay on my end here. Could I ask you? If I don't know how many people attending here are call themselves atheists or ascribe to an atheistic mentality. Did you feel that you had access to information that helped you with that? Did it just seem like a no-brainer? Were you raised in an atheist environment? What brought you to that understanding, as far as like, oh, these are really just tales that people have told to control populations and etc., all the things that we mostly probably know? Do you feel like AN is kind of in its infancy, like maybe atheism was 50 years ago or so? Is that where we're at?
For me personally, just YouTube and just reading articles online was helpful for me to become an atheist, which is, and same thing with antinatalism. It was, I had the concept in my head, but when I found out there's a school of thought, I was like, oh, I'm not the only one that thinks like this.
Well, one reason I ask is I don't know if you're familiar with Madeline Murray O'Hare.
Yeah, the with American Atheists.
American Atheists. When in college, I lived with a housemate who was very good friends with her granddaughter, and so she would come over to the house when we had our house dinners every day. She'd come over maybe once every couple of weeks. And so we had her sitting there and we could ask her questions. And a lot of times I would play devil's advocate as a religious person and try and see, how she handled questions that about her atheism and things like that. But at the time, she was a fairly strong figure about trying to get prayer out of schools and at football games and off the coins and money. I don't know if you guys probably don't remember any of that.
I remember.
But she was a big name, but she got a lot of pushback being an atheist. But her organizational skills were such that back then all that was available was a cable TV show. So I ran a camera for her and for her American Atheist show. And she would have her 2 or 3 other people on, or a guest, and they would talk about, how about atheism and how atheists are prejudiced against in the workplace and in the schools, and how we have religious concepts just pervade our systems of government, from having to take an oath, when you're a juror, all the way to anything else. And so I thought it was good informationally, but they had to have an organization to try and disseminate that, and it was based in Austin, Texas. And I wonder, we don't really have that for antinatalism yet, do we?
Well, I think that you're almost talking about the child-free movement, where we can benefit from that as a conversation starter. Child-free rights for people without children, like I was talking about. Nameless taxes and that kind of thing.
Do they have a base of operations, though? I guess is what I'm asking. Is that the direction that we should take? Is that why we were considering having it done in India? Because they're organized and they have a physical location, or
yeah, they're definitely more organized in India, more so than any other place that I've seen.
I guess I'm trying to just sort of immensely quickly review here in my lifetime how we went from like the American atheist trying to push back, getting "In God We Trust" taken off the coins, to getting a prayer out of a football game, or having to say an oath when you become a school teacher to a supreme being, how to where now I'm talking to maybe 3 or 4 other atheists with no problem here online. And so which wouldn't have happened when I was younger. So I'm wondering, what did the atheist community do, I guess, to make it even almost very acceptable, for instance, in the EU, from the people I know in the EU, that it's like no problem to be an atheist there. It's almost like you're expected or understood to be an atheist unless you declare otherwise. It's actually flipped.
I think it is safe to say we are in our infancy. I mean, it really has only been, I mean, yes, it's been around on, say, YouTube for 10 years, but I mean, even that has been a slow crawl to any kind of, I mean, people aren't confident in their antinatalism at all. I mean, it still scares most antinatalists to come out or be open as antinatalists. So even as individuals, we're along. I think things like having a conference in a place in the world where, I mean, it's not accepted in India per se, but they're certainly more organized there, and there's certainly more of a precedent that's been set of it existing there and it being covered by a wider spectrum of media. And I think that if we have it there, and it's more of an international coming together of antinatalists, and people see that, I think that's a good step in the direction of emboldening people to, in the rest of the world, to get more active, to be more, to have more courage in their antinatalist convictions. Because it's like, I've said this many times before, I mean, the way that things are now, it's a real phenomenon in the antinatalist community that most people that make a video about the subject take it down, a week, a month later, and disappear because they're so terrified of what the consequences of their antinatalism is going to be. So that's another reason why I think there's no other place in the world but India we're going to be able to do this, because it's the only place in the world people are brave enough to do it, to be honest with you. I mean, yeah.
But I remember you talked about this. What was your theory about, so if you have your full name on those videos, sure, I could understand wanting to take it down after you think about the consequences of it. But if you're using an alias, I still don't understand why a lot of videos get taken down.
I think people are paranoid. I mean, I hate to use that word, but I don't know what else to call it. I mean, people are terrified that somebody at work, somebody in their family, it becomes the reasons become really illogical really fast.
But they're not unjustified, do you think? Because, you know, in my experience at work, I could never, ever talk about that. I would really assume that somehow they would work to have me dismissed, honestly. And anybody I've tried to discuss it with, a lot of times I've gotten emotional pushback, physical violence.
Well, I don't know why people are planning on having these conversations at work anyway. That's not where you have antinatalist conversations.
No, but there's, you know, people talk about football and their kids, and you know, if you do feel like your voice is silenced. So I can understand why if it came, you know, your boss saw that you were an antinatalist, he just might find a way to put you on an awful project or get you fired. I mean, really, honestly, because they see this as a personal affront to their own belief system.
Yeah, it's more than possible. The other side of this is that most people have no idea what the hell we're talking about either. Yeah, and I mean, that's the way. I mean, people have been concerned about that happening for the last 10 years when, like, the word is so obscure and, like, these videos are so under the radar. So it is a little bit I get what you're saying, and I'm not saying that circumstance could never happen. It certainly could, but the level to which people are terrified of it happening is a little out of the realm of likelihood, I think. I mean,
well, I do respect you for putting yourself out there, face and all, and with videos. I think that's great, Amanda. Fantastic. And I'm pretty bold about things I say when, you know, if the time is right, and I feel like I'm going to be respected for what I have to say. If I don't feel that's true, or it's just not a situation that I want to talk about it because I fear for reprisals, then I still sometimes keep my mouth shut. I don't feel like I can speak freely like even a religious person could. Mm-hmm. And so I can understand them having some hesitation about.
I can too, and I'd frankly, see, the thing is, I would rather people have hesitation and really think about it before they do it, because I think that's the other side of this, is like, why do people do it and then think about it? And I think that's been another big part of this, is like, we got a lot of people that jump in guns a-blazing, and then it's like, oh my God, what have I done?
Well, isn't that half of the natalists' attitude too? It's like, oh my God, what have I done?
That is true. That is true.
That's how people are.
Yeah. But that's why so much of the movement is in these sort of like hidden from the public groups. I mean, that's why the Facebook groups started. It was because it wasn't YouTube and it wasn't public. It was like you had to join these groups in order to see it and everything.
I actually have a concern with the groups too, because I do talk about it with my friends openly, and I'd say about 5 or 6 friends have joined the Antinatalist group, and it's not exactly a cheery group.
It needn't be a sad one either, but
no, it's incredibly depressing. The and I it's valid, right? Because we're talking about suffering. It's hard to do that in a cheery attitude.
No, but the fact that we actually understand the problem, have a solution for it, and we can cheaply and easily implement it. Because I can't tell you how many engineering jobs I've had where that was not true. We didn't understand the problem. Why did that bridge collapse or whatever it might be? There was no funding to try and fix it, and we didn't know, you know, how to get it done, how to get the money to get it done. Does that make sense? But so if you think about it, it's not a mystery where children come from. We know how to prevent it, and we know the results of putting people on this planet to suffer. So we've got all that. All we really don't seem to have here is the awareness and implementation. But the other part is block solid, as far as I'm concerned. It's not that difficult. It's not a trying to understand, are there multiverses? Where did the universe start? You know, it's not a quantum mechanics or astrophysics issue where we just don't have enough information. Or how do we cure cancer?
Yeah,
we know the problem. We have the solution. It's easy to implement. I think that brings me great joy, honestly.